All right, guys, we are going to do chapter 4, lesson 3. There are no sheets that go with this lesson. Lesson 3 is a lot of review on things that we have touched about already in science and in social studies. And then you will get a study guide for chapter 4, and then eventually later this week or next week we'll review everything, and you will have a quiz that will have some information from chapter 3 and then some information from chapter 4 as a quiz. So let's go ahead and do lesson 3, caring for our environment. That's going to start on page 128. So we're going to look at pollution, which is a vocabulary term we've already used. Conservation is going to be a new one for us today, and then recycle. And we've talked about recycling before. So like I said, this will be just a quick review. Won't take very long, and then you'll have the chapter 4 study guide. All right, so people make changes to the environment every day. We talked about that yesterday. Some of the changes people make can cause problems, but we can care for the environment by protecting our natural resources. So controlling pollution, one way people change the environment is by creating pollution. So we've talked previously about changing the environment by building roads and buildings and bridges and things like that. And those are positive ways that we can change our environment, but also it can be negative as well, because if we have more roads, then we have more people traveling, which means then we could have more pollution, and we've talked about pollution before. So pollution is anything that makes a natural resource dirty or unsafe to use. For example, water that is polluted is not safe to drink. We've talked about water being polluted, and we would not want to drink it. We won't want to bathe with it, cook with it. We won't want to eat the fish or other sea life that comes from it, because they could be contaminated. So we've talked about that in previous units before as well. So causes for pollution: trash and other kinds of waste can cause pollution. Some people throw trash onto the ground or into bodies of water. Because of this, trash collects on the land and in waterways. This can make soil and water unsafe for plants, animals, and people. Factories and cars can cause air pollution. Smoke in the air can mix with fog. This kind of pollution is called smog. Breathing polluted air can lead to health problems. So if you live in a highly air polluted area and you have asthma, it might make your breathing worse. But we've touched on pollution before, so this should all be just a quick review. Reducing pollution: many communities have made changes to cut down on pollution. Some car makers now make hybrid cars that have both a gasoline engine and an electric motor with a battery. So those cars that you can plug in and charge, and then you can drive, and then when you get home you plug them in and charge them again. By burning less gasoline, hybrids can cause less pollution. Page 130 starts with conserving our resources. So making sure that we don't use them all up, because like we've talked about, especially with natural resources, if we use all of them up and we can't make any more, they're natural, they come from the earth. Once we use all of them, they're gone and we don't have them anymore. So we need to conserve them. So that's what we're going to read about on page 130. So people protect natural resources through conservation. Conservation is the saving of resources to make them last longer. So try not to use them up at one time, but like spreading it out over a long period of time. One form of conservation is to set aside lands for special protection. The use of the resources in these lands is limited. Reusing resources: another way people conserve is by recycling. When people recycle, they use resources over again. Newspapers and cardboard, many plastics, glass from bottles and jars, and aluminum from cans can be reused. By recycling, people do not add as much trash to landfills, Landfills are places where trash is dumped. So we've talked about recycling before and reusing something, and how we use a tree to make paper and things like that, and then we recycle the paper and we can make the paper again, or we can use other things. But the newest one here is the conservation, trying to save it so that way it doesn't get all used up at one time. Page 131, plan for the future. Not everybody agrees on the best ways to care for the environment. However, changes people make now will improve the environment in the future. A plan to care for the environment can make sure these changes are good ones. So some people think recycling is good. Some people think that we should only be using hybrid cars. There's lots of different opinions that people feel are the best way to save our natural resources. So just keep that in mind as you read this section. This is actually the end of chapter 4. A lot of review, a little bit of new stuff here and there sprinkled in. So you're going to get the chapter 4 study guide, okay? You can go back in your lessons, okay? They start on page 114 and they go through page, it says 137, but the reading goes through page 131. So there was 3 lessons, so you're going to have 3 sections. You're going to read the sentences, and you have terms to fill in the blank. So you'll pick the correct term to complete the sentence, okay? So short, sweet, simple, and then your social studies test will cover some information from chapter 3 and then some information from chapter 4, okay? If you have any questions, let me know.